This episode of the Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by Harrogate Springwater. Famous for its waters since 1571, Harrogate is Britain's premium natural source water. Hello all, you are listening to the Capsule in Conversation podcast. I'm Natalie Anderson and today I'm joined by BAFTA and international award-winning actress Sophia Myles as we talk the journey of womanhood and celebrating International Women's Day. So for the first time this season, sit back, relax and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all, it is so lovely to be back for our 6th series of In Conversation, talking all things women's wellbeing and mental health. And today I am joined by a stalwart in the acting arena, having started her career at just the tender age of 16 and has since appeared in a plethora of incredible films and TV shows, including Doctor Who, Outlander, From Hell, Transformers, Spooks, A Very British Scandal, and winning a BAFTA for her role as Kate in Hallam Foe. She's been an action hero and lady of the manor. She is the fabulous Sophia Myles. Hi, Sophia.
Oh, hi, Natalie. That was such a lovely introduction. Goodness, thank you. I'm so excited to be talking to you. This is so cool.
I'm so excited to have you. Honestly, it's just absolutely brilliant because we have launched this episode to go out with International Women's Day. We're celebrating all things women. You have played some of the most incredible women. I mean, your CV, I've just read out all those credits and that is not even a fifth of the work that you've done. I mean, you've played, like I said, so many incredible women. Have there been any standouts for you?
Well, I guess when I played Lady Penelope in Thunderbirds, that was amazing because she is, the puppet was an icon, the show was iconic. And so I was so flattered, like when they offered me the job, I couldn't believe it, But I think Lady Penelope was a huge amount of fun to play.
And I imagine, like you say, really special because at that time, what she embodied as well, this incredibly powerful woman for the time that the puppet was created and became so iconic. And, it is International Women's Day on March the 8th. Now, do you think it's important that we take that day to reflect on our journey as women?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we forget how recently we didn't have the rights that we have now. And, we've come so far in such a short amount of time. And I kind of feel that currently, I feel like the kind of divine feminine energy is like really rising, and I think it's funny because ever since when I gave birth to my son, I remember like the first time I went out for a walk with him in the pram, it was only like 2 days after giving birth. And for the first time, and I'm all about equal rights and equality within men and women, but I have to say, I was like looking around, having, when I was younger, sort of put men on a pedestal and, felt slightly inferior, partly because, within my workplace, I mean, it's been spoken about, there's a huge sort of gender divide in payments, even though, for example, I did a movie called Tristan and Isolde with James Franco, which was like a Romeo and Juliet love story. But he was paid, 5 times as much as I was, but we were both in it, for equal amount of screen time. But anyway, what I was saying was that when I gave birth to Luke, after having gone through the birth and I was pushing the baby around, I was looking around thinking, I'm a fucking warrior, man. Like these men, like I felt supreme. I really did. I've got over it now and kind of come back to earth. But for a while I was like, I'm sorry, women are far better. The stuff that we do, you get like when men get a cold, so like a common cold, I've had ex-boyfriends in the past who've just literally got not even the flu, but just like a cough and a splutter and like, oh, how will you cope when I die? Like literally like they want me to draw up the last rites, and it's just like, giving birth and being pregnant, the whole thing, it's, and periods as well. I mean,
absolutely.
We bleed every month for 5 days, and anyway, yeah, I do think women are seriously cool.
There is that energy, like you say, that I love, and that's very much what the Capsule is about. It's about our collective energy, and it's about, you know, giving women the knowledge, the information, sharing the information through that sisterhood, through womanhood, and saying, oh, have you seen this? Have you found that? And I love that. I think that now with social media and things like podcasts, we're able to share that information much more frequently and talk more openly about things like periods, like pregnancy, like even with us a lot, we talk about the perimenopause and the menopause, and you know that's something that we will cover, which I was having this conversation with my husband, and you know I just turned 40 last year, and when I was talking about the perimenopause, it's like, why are you even bothering thinking about that now? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like the next big thing, but they don't register it, and it just seems that there's this whole phase of just milestones of life that we as a collective deal with, and that we, you know, have to kind of push through, and as you said there, you know, in the workplace, particularly across the border, actually, for women in very different industries. But being from the entertainment industry myself, I have seen that kind of divide in the pay gap. And, you know, you started your career at 16, which was incredibly young, you know, working for Julian Fellows. And do you think at that time, which was like in the mid-90s?
Yeah, like 1996.
Like how... Were you even prepared for that? What was it like for you walking onto those sets for the first time, as you say, within quite a male-dominated area?
Yeah. So I went to an all-girls school, and I was very badly bullied. I think looking back, reflecting, it was because I was very bright. I was kind of one of the straight A students. And also, even though I had no awareness of, you know, the fact that I was good looking, clearly, like looking back, like there was jealousy issues. I was very badly bullied, and I never felt like in my secondary school that I was kind of part of any sort of group. I was always the outcast. And I think what I fell in love with about being on a film set was that for the first time in my life, I really felt like part of a team, and I felt welcomed into that group. And it's a bit like running off and joining the circus, you know, but what I loved as well, because I've always, ever since I was young, I've always loved wise older people. Like, it's only now that I'm about, I'll be 41 in March. It's only now that I'm starting to be able to actually connect on a level with people my own age. So, you know, I grew up, you know, with working with adults, you know, from a very, very young age. But I love that because, you know, with age comes wisdom. And I mean, there were lots and lots of men, but equally, I worked with some really great, strong women as well when I was younger.
And what was that like, kind of being in the spotlight at such a young age as well? Because again, the 90s were very different to kind of where we're at now. I mean, there's different pressures now, but in the 90s, you know, growing up and being so out there kind of in some of the incredible films that you did and being put on magazine covers, how did you deal with that as well at a young age?
Do you know what? I think when you're sort of going through it, it all happens so quickly, and you're not really aware of it. I mean, I was sort of sorting through some old boxes in the house recently and found a copy of Tatler, and I was on the cover, and I kind of look back and go, wow, you know, that was pretty cool. I didn't really realize it at the time. But one thing I will say about, you know, becoming like, you know, making a name for myself in the 90s, one thing I'm so grateful for is the fact that camera phones and social media didn't exist, because it gave me and a lot of my, you know, fellow actor friends the freedom to be able to kind of party and make mistakes and, you know, behave in a bad way and get away with it. Because now you see everyone's a paparazzi with their phones. Like, you know, there's no privacy wherever you go. And I also liked, I think, you know, the mystery of it, because now, you know, everything's so exposed, and I don't know, but again, you know, so many people use Instagram as a sort of smoke screen to, you know, project this life that clearly isn't, you know, what is truthful for them. But yeah.
Do you feel as well, though, that being a woman and a young woman at that time, you were under different pressures to your male counterparts?
It's tricky. I mean, I'm pretty strong, and because I've the only thing in my life, I lack a lot of self-confidence, self-esteem issues have always been a big problem for me. And I don't want to kind of turn this into a therapy session, but I wasn't as a youngster kind of equipped with the tools of self-belief and inner strength and all of that. But the only area within my life, and still to this day, where the only thing I know that with certainty, is that, I can do my job really, really well. So I was never really frightened kind of or felt inferior when it came to the acting, with the men. I mean, I suppose the pressure, this is a kind of, everyone knows about this, but the pressure on women to kind of be thin. And I've always been naturally, like, I'm a fluctuator, I've got a kind of a stone, like, I go up and down by like a stone at a time. And I definitely, when I put on a little bit it was never too much weight. That's the thing, looking back.
That's the thing about it. The culture was so crazy.
Ridiculous.
And I think it's great that now, and young women now especially are using their platforms to kind of like fight against that diet culture that we lived through. And it was tough to live through.
Yeah. And now, like, it's, the whole, in you and our back in our day, as it were, there was that, does my bum look big in this question? But now, like, people want to have a big ass, whereas we were always desperate to kind of, have bottoms like boys. Do you know what I mean?
Well, because we were told that if we put weight on, like, that's, I had that. Like, I was once told by my drama teacher that he was literally pointing at my belly and went, "What's that gut?" And he was like, "You'll have to get rid of that." And literally, that was just...
And it makes me so angry.
Exactly. And me now, like, it's the same thing, like, reflecting now. And we've moved so far forward.
But you know what that's about? What I've come to realise, that is all about control. That's a weapon that men used to use to kind of try and put us in our place, And I'll tell you, I haven't spoken publicly about this before, but I've got a good story around my experience on Transformers, and this ties into what I've just said about control. So I auditioned for the job. I did it on a self-tape, thinking that there was not a chance in hell that I was going to book a movie like that. And lo and behold, got a call back from my agent a few days later saying, Michael Bay, the director, he's really, very interested in casting you. Can you just do it one more time and, tweak this and that and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I got offered the job. Obviously, I was just over the moon. But 3 days later, my agent called me and said, Michael says you're too fat. Right? Yeah. So I freaked out. Because there was no way in hell that I was going to, lose the job. I think I went on a water diet for a week. And anyway, no, this is where it gets interesting. So then I remember I got a call from the first assistant director. So I lost weight. Got a call from the first assistant director saying, Michael says, can you tone your arms? Right? All of my costumes had long sleeves. So it's not like, look, I've got bingo wings and I've never been I've never lifted weights. I'm a lazy fucker when I'm, honestly, I probably got my heart rate up twice last year. And that was only because I was in a rush for a train. But anyway, so then that happened. And then a few weeks after that, the producer knocked on my trailer, and it's never at lunchtime. And it's never a good sign if they come knocking, like there's always a problem. And he said to me, Michael says you're too thin. Ugh. And I felt in my head, I thought, what's next? Does Michael think my eyes are too blue? But that ties in with what I'm saying. Like, it was never about weight to begin with, but it was a mechanism that, because they knew that we were insecure about it as women. And that was the one thing, but we never judge men in that way. I mean, they're allowed to walk around with guts and, be out of shape and their confidence doesn't get affected. You can get the most sort of out of shape slob that still thinks they've got a chance with Charlize Theron. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, they have no gauge of, I don't want this to turn into sort of a men bashing thing, but I do feel like now I'm 41, it's like I can actually speak my truth and fuck it. Like, this is what happened. But a lot of men seem to have no gauge of like where they stand in the hotness scale. Like, and they will just shoot right for the top with no qualms about it. And you're just like, dude, do you have a mirror? Like, I don't mean to be rude, but do you really think like anyway, that's terrible to say.
Thing,
but do you know what I mean?
I totally understand what you mean. And that is, and that experience is awful. And like you say, can be really controlling and mess with your head as well. Like, so what's this? You don't know where you are. It puts you in a place of insecurity, of vulnerability. And, that must have been a horrible experience. But obviously then you go on, you do the job and you get on with it. And as quite rightly, the disparity between men and women and especially how we age, that's something I've really found. Like the aging process for women. And you see like men are like, oh my God, he's amazing. He looks gorgeous. And, we have got incredible women now kind of flying the flag and just being, whether it's they want to be all natural or whether they want to have treatments or whatever, but women that are post 40, whereas in our industry, if you were ever post 40 10 years ago, it's like, forget it. Now we are seeing, female-led stories. We're seeing older women in more central roles. And it's welcome, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think, I remember when I was pregnant, finding this huge relief that, I'd be able to walk down the street without builders whistling at me for the first time. And I actually felt it was a huge relief because when I was younger, I was definitely preyed on purely because of the way I looked, and I often, even with some boyfriends, I have to admit, like I felt like they never really saw me. All they saw was the physical shell, the body. And, the constant kind of, having to sort of bat off, predators and stuff like that. So, like I said, being pregnant was really, I found it really liberating. And I think the same goes with like the way I look at it with age is that it's actually, I think we actually have the potential, and I think I want to anyway, like for my inner strength and my inner light and my inner power to be, my weapon, not, my boobs or my bum, because that's so superficial, all of that stuff.
Do you feel like as you've got into your 40s and like you said earlier, you've got your voice to speak your truth, and there is that power that comes with it that's kind
and
of
it's only going to get better. Like I tell you something, like when I'm 70, I won't give a fuck. Like I'll just be like, I'm really looking forward to it. I was at this Doctor Who convention the other day, and there was a guy there, an older man. He was in his 90s, and we were, the younger ones were always, being sort of very polite and, always saying, oh, everyone was lovely. They're all lovely to work with. But he was just, he didn't give a shit. And, and I found like, you always get that, ask that question, like when you're doing press junkets for a movie. So you always get asked the question like, oh, what was so-and-so like to work with? And then your answer was, oh, he was lovely, wonderful. So, so inspiring. Whereas in your head, you're going, he's And I look forward to the day where I actually can say that out loud, because people shouldn't behave badly. And if you behave like one of those, like it's not acceptable.
But why do we allow it? Why? Because you're right. We do it. We all go, oh, yeah, they were so nice and they were so lovely. Yeah. Why do we do that? Why don't we call people out?
Because I think, and I hope this is changing, but I think this is one thing that used to really irritate me. Like if a male co-star had a problem or decided he wanted something different, he would go up to the director and the director would listen and kind of, take it all on board. But if it's a woman or a girl, if they're objecting to something, they instantly deem you as like, oh, she's really difficult. Do you know what I mean? She's really difficult to work with. And they'll use that against you because I think men are, deep down, I think men are actually very scared of women. Most men, because we are cooler.
But you're right. And we've had this conversation before on this podcast many times about how when a woman when a woman puts forward her thoughts and like if she's unhappy about something or she's a bitch, she's difficult, and those labels, diva that are applied, and you either have to kind of take the route of suck it up and just, okay, well, I accept that label and deal with it.
Whereas if it's a man, they're like, oh, he's really challenging and he's a genius. He came up with all these good ideas.
But I do think, though, that it is turning. And I love, like we were saying, seeing more women building production companies. I look at somebody like Reese Witherspoon, who's built, Hello Sunshine, which is just incredible, inviting lots of different women in and telling their stories and looking at discrimination and telling stories across the board. It is slowly but surely, the more women that we get in those kind of senior positions across the board in every industry, it is changing. Because, you look at somebody like Alex at Channel 4, who's brought in all the support for women working through the menopause, because that's another huge thing that wasn't supported before, of like women going to work and then feeling they're entering the phase of menopause and having to actually leave their jobs. And it's incredible that was, and that is happening. People actually saying either they're being fired, kind of pushed out, or just the fact that they don't have enough support and they feel insecure and are leaving jobs. So keeping women, clever women, in these top jobs is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. But could you explain, because I actually thought I was starting the menopause a few weeks ago because I suddenly was having these terrible hot flushes. It turned out to be COVID.
Oh, God.
But for a second I did think, I was like, oh, wow, because my mother used to have terrible hot flushes. But what you clearly, because you've been having this conversation with a lot more people than I have, and none of my friends have started yet. But what happens? Does it completely twist your brain? And
it's really slowly. So we would probably start to enter the perimenopausal phase from as early on even as our mid-30s. So like from 35 onwards. And you might notice like little things that are starting to change, like even the odd glass of wine, the extra glass of wine that might make you feel slightly unwell. And if you go back actually and listen, there's a couple of other podcasts on here, and Lisa Snowdon explained it really well. You can get allergic to the histamine in wine and in alcohol, so your alcohol intolerance starts to slowly change.
Okay.
Your mood starts to change. Your cycle ever so slightly might become just erratic by 1 or 2 days. The insomnia, you start to kind of not be able to sleep as well. But these are all very gradual changes. I personally have, been talking about this for some time because I like to take supplements. I like to be aware of these things just so that I at one point thought I was going crazy, and I couldn't tell you if I was definitely perimenopausal or not, but I know that my mood started to really change and altered throughout my cycle. So I was getting more like PMS around ovulation rather than just the week before. And it's just those subtle changes that, are pointing us towards that's the next phase of our life, but it's not something that we should be afraid of. It's something that, the women that are going before us, and with HRT, people talk about HRT like it's this, if you're on HRT, oh my God, it kind of signals that you're old. HRT is basically like the pill, in the same sense of going, I need to redress my hormones and the balance. So I'm going to go and get some. And it restores drop in libido, all kinds of different things that you might just slowly start to be noticing. And I'm happy that these conversations are now becoming more mainstream, and that, you can talk about these things more openly, because it is vitally important that we do prepare ourselves and the guys around us as well for the next phase of life, and not kind of be frightened of it. But, like going through, jumping forward a bit, going into motherhood, would you say that changed your perspective on your career?
Well, so that's a big question. It's definitely caused changes. I didn't really think past. Well, all I knew was that. So I hadn't thought about having children at all in my 20s, and then literally overnight. I must have been about 32, woke up one morning just desperate to be pregnant. And it's not, my clock didn't sort of start, well, it started chiming like straight away. And I wasn't with anyone at the time. And it was weird because all of my friends had got married and were settled down, and they were all starting to have babies. And I then sort of I had Luke when I was 34. But I literally was getting so desperate, I would have just picked a man up on the street and said, just impregnate me. You never have to talk to me again. It's fine, but I just need a baby. Goodbye. And then I luckily met my partner and Luke's dad. But so all I knew was that I wanted a baby, and I didn't really think beyond that or how I was then going to juggle it. All I knew was that, I had actresses, friends that had kids, and they seemed to, still work and blah, blah, blah. But I I don't know, with hindsight, I look back at what I did and think, was that a mistake? But what happened was I said to my agents that I really, I was fortunate enough to have enough money in the bank to be able to give myself the luxury of, an extended maternity leave. Now, I do have friends that, have taken babies into the makeup chair in the morning and been breastfeeding between shots and all of that. But having just my whole life up until the point Luke was born had been work. Like, that's all I'd ever known. And I just wanted to be completely there for him, undivided attention. I didn't want any distractions. So I said to my agents, basically, don't call me, I'll call you. And then it was about a year and a half. And then I thought, okay, I'll give them a ring and we can get going again. Assuming that because I'd had a career that spanned at that point, 25 years or something, that I'd be back in the game and stuff would pick up. And it was a complete opposite, because what the business is like, because I'd sort of stepped off the treadmill. I'd lost momentum. And then this horrible thing happened, was that I auditioned for 3 years and didn't get a job. And it totally, rejection's part of the thing, right? And you learn how to handle it. You don't get every job you go for, but you at least get something every year. Well, I did anyway. And this was 3 years of just rejection. And it really fucked me up mentally. And my self-esteem, my self-confidence, all of it went, because I actually, was thinking, well, maybe since I've become a mum, maybe I can't act anymore. Maybe that's why. And then of course you go to maybe I just look too old now. And all they ever wanted from me was, when I was a young, beautiful ingenue, and time's up, So that was tricky. And in fact, I remember it got so bad. I really considered, I was on the verge of quitting, because I thought, I'm not going to put myself through this pain anymore. And I sort of made the decision to quit. But I had just done this audition for Discovery of Witches, a TV show for Sky Atlantic. And I remember the day that I decided that I was going to call my agent and say, that's it, I'm out. I got offered the job. So, but it's been slow. Obviously, I also wanted to sort of initially shrink the boundaries of my career, because I used to sort of work globally. And I'd said to my agent, look, can we just contain stuff within England and Europe for now? I have the issue that my son's dad is a normal person, works a normal job, and can't, travel. I think had I married, and we're not married actually, but had I teamed up and had a child with somebody who was nomadic like myself, I think it would have been a very different story. And again, did I shoot myself in the foot by turning down lots of stuff, or not going up for auditions for stuff in America? Who knows? But, I'm still here, still auditioning.
Still working and, appearing in incredible productions. And I think, though, that transition anyway happens when an actor moves, especially a female actor, moves from the late 20s, early 30s into those more 40s. There's this weird transition. You go from being the girlfriend to the mum, and that transition is really difficult. And I think that does happen anyway, regardless of whether you've become a mum or not. But it's still incredibly difficult to deal with, and still, again, feels very unfair, because it doesn't kind of happen on the reverse. It doesn't the side for guys. It doesn't happen. But
because the guys at 50 are all, being cast with girls, 20 to play their girlfriends.
Absolutely. And so now, though, coming into this next phase of what you can bring as well, do you feel like you bring more to a role now that you're a mum? Do you feel like it's broadened your spectrum of what you can offer?
Well, definitely, because, one crosses a threshold, as soon as you give birth and you see your child, it's like something happens. Well, what happened to me was that I suddenly saw the world through a different lens. And it also applies, so my dad died a couple of years ago with COVID. He was one of the first people in this country to die. He was number 27 or something. And
sorry.
No, it's fine. But his death, just like Luke's birth, either the birth of one of your own children or the death of one's parent, going through that with dad, that's given me another shift of perspective and thoughts. And so, I definitely feel like I'm much more enriched than I was, when I was younger. And I do also really welcome So, I'm very grateful and, very flattered that I was cast as the beautiful girl through most of my 20s and the object of, desire or love or whatever. But I've always felt very much like a character actress trapped in a leading lady's body, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And often like the female roles in your 20s, I mean, you really are predominantly there to look pretty, or to cry when, something bad happens. You're not necessarily driving, well, that's not true because Lady Penelope, she was a badass. But I'm really looking forward now to kind of actually go into the makeup room and actually, be disheveled rather than, having to sit for 2 hours and, them trying to make me look pristine.
It's liberating. Yeah, I was just about to say, it's very liberating. Like this next phase for me, I'm really excited by, and I'm really embracing and feeling like, yes, now we get the good stuff. Now we're like the Joanna Lumley type territories of like, oh, just go in there and be wild and experimental. And I think it does free you up. And I do feel very optimistic and excited for this next phase. And I feel it's because of other women that have trailblazed before us. And, who are the women that have really inspired you?
Within the business?
Within the business and within life, really.
I was thinking about that when you sent through the questions the other day. So one woman who's really inspired me is Dawn French, who, I mean, I fell in love with Dawn when I was about 6 because it's funny. If you're funny, like, you win with me, hands down. If you can make me laugh, that's it. And I loved, she just made me laugh. And so I was always, I watched everything she was in. And then I did an episode of Miss Marple when I was about 25. And I remember suddenly looking at the cast list and Dawn French was on it. And I was like, and she really was like an icon to me, and I was really brave one lunchtime. So I'd met her and we'd, be working a bit together, but I was still like, I was very, very shy, but I tried to hide it well. And I thought, you know what, I've got a chance to actually meet this woman properly and, connect with her. And I was brave. Like one lunchtime, I took my plate of food and I thought, go on, knock on Dawn's door. And I did. And I was fully prepared for her to say, I'm just taking a nap, can I talk to you later? And she was like, oh, come in. And of course, I'm like in my own head, like just fangirling like a nutter. And then it turned out, so I remember during filming, there was this big, very popular, I can't remember who was in it, but Big Brother was huge that year. And it was like the best season ever. And Dawn, like me, is a huge fan of reality trash TV.
And me.
No, that's all I watch. I'm terrible. Like, I love a bit of like Kardashians. It's like there's somebody posted a thing on Facebook saying, I can proudly say I've never seen a single episode of the Kardashians. Whereas I wrote back to my friends, I can proudly say that I've seen every single one 3 times. But anyway, so Dawn and I ended up really connecting over Big Brother. And then we sort of, because our filming finished and then Big Brother was still going, I'd also at that point been brave enough to ask for a number. And so we'd sort of text, and we'd text each week when someone's evicted or whatever. And it turned out then that she did live in Cornwall, very close to where my mum and my brother live. And again, I was brave and I told her, I said, look, I'm going to be in Cornwall. Do you fancy a cup of tea? And she was like, yeah, come over. But the reason that she inspires me is, she is even better in real life than, her on-screen persona is obviously incredible, but she is so grounded, so wise, very funny, obviously, but she's the person that I'll go to with like any real kind of important kind of soul problem that I have, whether it's, I suffer from very, very bad depression, and I can talk to her about stuff like I can go to her for guidance. She's like a kind of wise elder to me. So there's Dawn. Yeah. And then another one would be, all the women that, I thought about it. So, do I think about people from history and the past? But, I didn't actually personally know those women. So I just thought it would be better to kind of talk about, the ones that I do know. Yeah. So do you know of an actress called Shannon Sossamon?
No.
She played She played the princess in A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger. Do you remember?
Yes, I do remember.
Really, really
yeah.
beautiful. And so I was a big fan of hers. And I remember when I watched her movies thinking, oh, I'd love to be friends with that girl. I reckon she's so cool. And then she ended up being cast on a TV series that I did at Warner Brothers for a couple of years. And we did become, great friends. And what's been wonderful about her, because she's our age as well, I think she's 42, maybe 43, is that I have a confidant in her to be able to sort of share the journey of, the trials and tribulations of having, become well known because of one's physicality, to then still want to be an actress and working out like that transition. And she's like a sister to me. We're really, really close.
It's really important that you have those relationships, isn't it? And like you say, those women that you can go to and through lived and shared experience. And, that's what makes, again, like going back to the whole arc of International Women's Day, of the fact that it is the sharing of stories and the sharing of support and kind of being together as a collective that keeps us kind of on this journey together, because it's very isolating if you are on your own, and if you do feel insular and internal, you can start to kind of go very inward, and then your brain takes over. But actually speaking and talking and sharing, especially with other women, is what helps us and galvanizes us to kind of keep going. I've also asked you about kind of the juggle of motherhood and acting and well-being. How do you keep your well-being like intact? How do you look after yourself?
If I'm honest, I find the worst relationship that I have with anybody on this earth is myself. Now I'm getting better at it because I'm aware of it, but again, let's not turn this into a therapy session, but, I can very clearly pinpoint where my self-esteem struggles began. I suffer from severe depression. It's hereditary. My dad had it. And for me, it can be completely debilitating. Like I literally can't get out of bed. And they call it mental illness, but when I try to explain to people who don't suffer from depression, it's physical as much as mental. I mean, you literally, you're drained. Even getting into the shower is like, oh, I can't, can't bear it. And it's tricky. I mean, luckily, people are talking about it now, but sadly, people that don't suffer from it just simply can't understand, and it's very irritating when people say, oh, come on, chin up, or, give us a smile. It's not that bad. And I think the reason that the depression became very hard for me to deal with is that a lot of people would say to me, when I was honest about it and say I feel very depressed, the comeback would be, well, how can you be depressed? You're pretty, you're a movie star, you've got money, and it's like, depression doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. So that's been the biggest hurdle and the biggest demon that I battle in my life is depression. And I also, in my past sort of suffered from addiction issues. But that really, the addiction came as a form of, they kind of run alongside. I would self-medicate, when I was younger with alcohol to kind of try and, medicate the depression. But now I'm sober.
And how do you manage it now? Because, for lots of different people, whether it's exercise, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's meditation, whether it's even a good diet, different things that you put into your diet, all of these things can have an effect. And as you say, on this podcast in particular, we're very open about these subjects, and particularly women's mental health. I know that depression obviously affects men as well, but for this podcast, it really is about opening those conversations and other women hearing people talk about these things openly. So for you, how do you manage that? How do you kind of, when you can feel it coming on, because we all know it's not always all the time as well, it can come in bouts. How do you look after yourself in that situation?
Well, for a very long time, I resisted psychiatric medication. Because I decided I wanted to try sort of every natural route possible. But sadly, everything I did never quite cut it. So when I was 33, I saw a psychiatrist for the first time and took antidepressants, and that's been a huge help to me, massively. And I think, a lot of people with depression struggle because they feel like they're failing. Like well, I did anyway. I felt like, again, like, what have I got to be depressed about? I should be grateful. Like I shouldn't feel like this. And also because my dad suffered from it. I grew up with someone who's depressed, so I know the impact that it has on the people around you, and I have to be careful because, when I get into it, I'm predisposed to just want to isolate, shut a door and close the curtains. And it's really been like, since having a family, it's been exposed. And that's a good thing, because I just used to, between you and I and whoever's watching this, it could put me in bed for 9 months. But the one thing that is the best cure is my work. And that's the medicine. And that's why I've kind of refused to give up, because I tell you what it is, I've worked it out. It's got nothing about, wanting to be on television, wanting to be famous, blah, blah, blah. For me, the moment between action and cut, I'm free from the inner chatter of my mind. And it's just, I feel peace for the first time, because mentally, I'll be honest, like the minute that I wake up, I can start talking very negatively to myself, catch sight of myself in the mirror and go, oh, you're getting older. Look at those droopy eyelids. Or, in the past, it would be like, oh, your bum's too big, or you shouldn't have said that. You should have been better. You didn't get that job because, and a lot of self-criticism. But I'm now aware of my own mind working. Whereas before, when I was younger, I just thought that was it. That was the truth. But I've come to learn that, my thoughts aren't the truth. And also that everything passes. And it's okay not to be okay. I think we've been conditioned to, like, especially in America, wherever you go, go into a shop, say, hey, how are you doing? And it's like, and everyone says, oh, I'm wonderful. How are you? And when I was in the States, sorry that my accent wasn't good then, because I've just not warmed up my voice. But, when I lived in LA and they say, how are you doing? And in my head, I just wanted to say, like, I'm suicidally depressed. How are you? And, people putting on this front, or maybe thinking that they have to present as, if you're not happy, if you're not feeling joyous, if you're not feeling inspired, then you're somehow failing at life. But, these emotions, I call them negative emotions. They're not actually negative, like feeling pain, feeling sorrow, feeling rejection. Like, that's all part of the vibe,
And it's feeling as well, and allowing those feelings to come, to wash over you, and then let them go. And I think that's a big thing that people are learning. We've been kind of, as you said, conditioned as well to have this get it together and, present. Yeah. Whereas, I think we're in a really good time at the minute for actually having those, again, difficult conversations to open it up so that we can be frank. I've talked a lot about the fact that I'd suffered anxiety on this podcast, and it's what really helped me was being like, I'm really anxious. Oh my God, I feel really bad. Just to verbalize it and get it out there, because once it's out there, and actually the response was, oh, me too, and me, and again being part of something and not feeling alone. And I think that can really massively impact and exacerbate any feelings of like negativity that you have. But the minute you actually can voice it, talk about it, and not be looked down on, and it be acknowledged, I think that helps move forward. In terms of your kind of, like, I know you've got like loads of products to tell me about, so I'm like, in terms of your
I've literally like,
your
I've
beauty,
got Space NK here.
like your beauty regime, what products are your go-tos to kind of make yourself feel good, to have that bit of self-care time?
Okay. You're going to just have to shut me down, because I wanted to share, because I get asked a lot about skincare. And because my face is my fortune, as it were, I always feel, for me, investing in, products is very, very important. But I kind of wanted to, I'm not a makeup person like this. That's my makeup bag. I might show you, I might not, but that's literally, I never use this apart from if I go out. And I associate makeup with work. So I kind of, I don't know, as you get older as well, I think less is more. But so let's start with cleansers. Okay, I'm just giving it
I
this
love
stuff.
this.
This is deep cleansing oil by DHC. It's amazing. You put it on your hands and mix it with a bit of water and put it on your face, and it just takes everything off. It's really good, and eye makeup as well. But and it's not oily. I know it looks oily. There's also this one by Aven, which you can get in Boots. That's a foaming cleanser, which is really good. I have dry, sensitive skin, so I'm afraid I can't offer up any solutions to oily skin. There was one more. Oh, this is higher end, but I love the company called Fresh. This is soy face cleanser, and this is a sort of, lather it up and blah, blah, blah. Moisturizers, I'm doing this fast.
That's all right.
This Dermalogica is a great line. I have dry skin, like I said. This is called Intensive Moisture Balance. That's really, really good. There's also this that you can get in Boots. It's the French range, again, Aven. This is like in the winter. This is just brilliant. And I love this. Face masks. This is the king. Multivitamin Power Recovery Mask by Dermalogica. Put this on and it honestly makes you look like you've had 8 hours sleep. I've been using this for years. Right. Now, anyone that does have spots or has an issue with spots, this is the nuts. It's Mario Badescu drying lotion. You put a cotton bud in the bottom, get the sort of silty pink stuff on it, and it will literally kill it overnight. So that's the best thing ever. I like using face oils as well. There's a wonderful lady called Sunday Riley,
yes,
whose products are great. I don't have the oil that I wanted to show you because I've run out, but it's an overnight oil called Luna. That's really good. But this is great, this one, CEO Glow. There's also a serum, and you put those together. A tip that I would have in terms of skincare, sorry, I'm talking really, really fast.
I love this. This is brilliant.
Is mix and match stuff, because you sort of shock your skin into, don't just use the same thing every day. Like, change up the selection, like have a bunch of things and then change it up. I only had to start sort of thinking about fine lines and wrinkles about a few years ago. These are two options. This is quite expensive. It's called Sakari Baby Facial by a company called Drunk Elephant. And it's basically, well, you have to try it. You put it on, and then once you've taken it off, it's like you have a whole fresh, it's like you've had a skin peel. A cheaper version, which pretty much does the same thing. This is a French product. It's like you can get it in a French pharmacy. You can get it on Amazon, though. A313. And it's like a pure retinol. You have to go easy with it. Like with both of these, go easy, because they can flare you up. Like, test a small patch first. If you don't want to do that kind of thing, this sugar face polish is great, because I like once a week I'll use, one of these three just to sort of strip off and, start afresh. Lip balms, this is really good from Drunk Elephant. This is a great product as well from Paw Original Balm. That's really good. And then the thing is about these two, they are expensive. There's this Sicily rose oil that's wonderful. And this, I buy this for myself once a year, and it lasts for 6 months, but it's absolutely ridiculously expensive. It's 200 quid for a small bottle, but honest to God, it is a miracle. It's called Vintner's Daughter. But like I said, it's 200 quid for this, but I swear to you, it's worth every penny. It works out to like £1 a day. But,
I always say this about skincare. I talk about this a lot in terms of I would rather invest £1 a day into my skin and so that I don't have to wear makeup and stuff than anything else.
Try the Vintner's Daughter then. Honestly, you won't, I'll give you your money back if it doesn't work. And then quickly, hair care. I've just chopped all of my hair off recently. But this stuff, I bought this mat. You can see how much I use it. I bought like a salon size thing. This is a hair mask by Philip Kingsley called Elasticizer. Again, once a week, use that. And then if dry shampoo, I've only got into recently, but this is a really good one by Clarraine. These are two killer products that I found. I'm almost done now, I think. But this, I shampoo my hair and then use this product. It's called Milkshake Incredible Milk. And it really is incredible. As is this stuff. It's called Rich and Famous Hair Oil Treatment. So I used to get sort of dry ends, And honestly, like this, it looks like an oil, but it goes on and it's dry. Like, I recommend everyone in the world try this at the ends of their hair. And that's it. So that's the end of the show.
I loved that beauty rundown. We'll make an edit of this for our social media when we're plugging this episode. Honestly, so absolutely brilliant. We have actually run out of time for today now, but honestly, Sophia, it's been absolutely wonderful to talk to you and to spend this day as well talking about your journey with womanhood, you know, the women that have inspired you, and you know, tipping our cap as well to the women that have gone before us and really, you know, like challenged and paved the way for us to kind of move forward. Just before we finish up, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
It's all going to be fine. It is fine. Don't worry about it.
Sophia, thank you so much. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me. Sophia can be currently seen playing Rebecca Bishop in Sky Originals' A Discovery of Witches, which is available to watch now on sky.com or stream on now, and as Louise Campbell in A Very British Scandal, which is available on Netflix. You can also keep up with Sophia by following her on Twitter at Sophia Myles. For more wellbeing, fashion and beauty, don't forget you can visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Please do feel free to leave your rates and reviews on this current new series. I would love to hear from you. You can also drop us a message at our Instagram at Official Capsule if you'd like to put a question to any of our future guests or leave a message about our current episodes. I will be back next week with another very special guest and more conversations of inspiration. But all that's left for us today is to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Sophia.
Bye.
And goodbye from me. This episode of The Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by Harrogate Spring Water. Bottled at source, Harrogate Spring offers a pure, refreshing taste with a delicate blend of naturally occurring minerals and electrolytes, perfect for healthy hydration.